Young people joke about FOMO, the fear of missing out. As vaccines become more widely distributed, I've noticed cruise lines announcing their return to the high seas, and they say they're very well booked into 2022. I've seen businesses announcing the measures that they're taking to welcome employees back to the physical office space. But are we about to embrace a new fear, the fear of returning to something that resembles normal? My name is Karen, and it's my pleasure as always to host you here at the Oldish TV and welcome you to this week's edition. You know, older adults, particularly those who live in long term and retirement home settings, have been somewhat more isolated than, say, young families who at least have each other in the physical space that is their home. While some older adults have been able to embrace technologies like Zoom or FaceTime, and may even have caught on to this business of dressing from the waist up and embraced elastic waistbands. Not everybody has caught on to that. So the isolation has been more severe for some than for others. I certainly know people who live a couple of streets away from family members, but they haven't seen each other in a year. While I know other people who have flaunted the public health guidelines and crossed borders or taken vacations. People have embraced a range of things in this past year, and they've been able to justify and rationalize everything that they're doing. But as the world opens up even more, the world is going to change a little bit more for everybody. We all react in different ways, and we will all react in different ways to this business of a return to normal. I'm having lunch with a friend at a restaurant that I have supported by online ordering for the past year, but I'm actually going to go into their physical space later this week. And recall that 2 years ago, I would not have looked up their protocols. I would not have taken note of where the screens are located because everybody's got screens between tables now. But now I do. It's become part of my normal as I look to enjoy my time in their restaurant. I know where all of this stuff is. I know what their protocols are. And now I feel very much like when I go into the restaurant and sit down, I will have a relaxing and very enjoyable time. Business has changed forever, I think. Companies like Twitter and Square have said that they will allow their employees to work from home forever. That changes their physical footprint, the physical footprint they need. That is, they need much smaller spaces when they need to accommodate perhaps hundreds instead of thousands of employees. They need maybe more conference spaces and less private office space. I know that we will need a new etiquette for those employees who are working from home, either forever or through flex time, because that's something else that businesses are doing. They're having employees look at the idea of maybe coming into the physical office space for conferences to meet with clients, but the rest of the time they're working at home. So it's a bit of a hybrid. Uh, but the etiquette piece is kind of important as our homes now turn into our office spaces, part time or full time. Builders are having to look at what people are wanting as they're building new spaces. Do couples need two office spaces on the main floor? Do homes need to have one office space at least on a main floor, or maybe an attic space that used to be left empty will be renovated to be an office space all decked out with HDMI cables and the capacity for high speed internet and those kinds of things? Are we really looking at all of that now? Can you just go knocking on somebody's door like we used to do as a neighbor? Oh, I was out for a walk. Just thought I'd stop by and say hi. You can't do that when people are working from home because you're actually intruding on their work time and in their workspace. So, do we need new rules and new etiquette? What are you doing about that? Lots of older adults are working from home. And whether it's full time or part time, these rules apply to them as well. I'm a hugger and I'm a handshaker. And while I think that handshaking may never really return, It might be more of the Asian or Mideastern bow to greet one another. That would be okay with me, but I do enjoy hugging. I kind of hope that comes back. A lot of people have started growing their own food. The seed companies were all sold out last year, and that looks like a trend that will continue this year. People are going to want to grow some, if not all, depending on the space that they've got, of their own food from their own homes. There have been a lot more people following the advice of doomsday preppers, not because they think the world is coming to an end, but because they want to know what they should be prepared with and for. If you have never done this, look up Doomsday Preppers. I know one of the videographers on our team told me about this a couple months ago, and I looked it up. It is fascinating, and they're very secretive. Very, very secretive. In fact, one article I read, the journalist said that he'd been working on this article for some time. I believe it was several months. And just as it was about to go to press, his brother told him that he himself was, in fact, a doomsday prepper, something the journalist had had no idea about. I read other more extreme stories of people who are building fortresses, literally fortresses, with bulletproof glass and concrete walls. And this is part of their doomsday prep. I'm not sure we're going to do things to that extent, but in the early days last year, people were stocking up on things like toilet paper and cleaning supplies. Now that they're in better circulation, what are you going to do with all this stuff? You know, if you're a true prepper, you will know that prepping is a multi-billion, not million, multi-billion dollar a year industry. And it hinges on things like food with a 25-year shelf life. Have you ever heard of that? I had not heard of that until I started reading. Survival food buckets are apparently a thing and can be purchased at places that are pretty mainstream, like Kmart, Costco, and Bed Bath and Beyond. What? I had never heard of this. I guess I'm going to pay a bit more attention now. But, I think that true food preppers would laugh at us because when I looked up the things that people were buying over this past year, the top items that people were buying a lot of to have in storage, here's the list. Let me read it to you. Bathroom tissue and cleaning supplies and hand sanitizer. We knew that. Flour, yeast, board games, yoga mats, cold medications, thermometers, canned foods, and bottled water. Now, when I look at canned foods, when I went to the grocery store, this is my experience, not the list of things, but when I went to the grocery store early on last year, and I would look at the things that people were buying, just taking a boo into their shopping carts, I would see a lot of prepared foods in cans being purchased. I would see a lot of prepared frozen foods being purchased. So the kind of stuff that you would open a can and dump it into a pot, heat it up and eat it, as opposed to the raw ingredients for things. But, I'm happy to see that there has been a return over the past year. It's been maybe a bit slower than I would have thought to scratch cooking, scratch baking, knitting, and quilting. I can do neither. I'm not a knitter, I'm not a quilter. I have no talent with regard to those sorts of things. Gardening, and it's been really fun watching families that I know of on Facebook document their, in essence, exploration of each other. They've gotten to know each other better. They have embraced family life in a way that they had not previously. I think that's been really nice. So, while there has been a lot of anxiety about isolation, I am starting to see now articles about anxiety related to returning to normal. However, Families who have embraced each other, I think, will find the normal is somewhat different than it was before. I am also seeing a lot of articles about mindfulness and wellness. These are hot topics in podcasts, blogs, conferences. In fact, I'm attending a conference next month, and this all has to do with home modification, and it will talk about wellness. That's the main theme of it. Now, it's not, when you think of wellness in terms of home modification, you may not think of these kinds of things, but I will tell you what they are. They're things like gases being released from carpets that people put down, the toxins that are in paints. That's the kind of wellness in home modification that is being embraced now. So think about that kind of thing. But apps like Calm, that produce white noise, tell you bedtime stories, play soothing music. These things are being scooped up. Online exercise programs that connect the body to the brain. So things, if you can think about yoga and Tai Chi, these are things we've talked about here on the Oldish for a long, long time. But we're talking about them in terms of making sure that your balance is better and that you stretch. Those are the kinds of things we have been talking about. These are talking about using yoga and Tai Chi to connect body wellness with mental health. It all works. So, it's all good. My colleagues who do work in the home modification space, by the way, are busier than they have been in a long, long time. Top projects, entrances to homes, and main floor bathrooms. People are preparing to age in place for a longer period of time than they ever thought they would, as they have read about and in some cases experienced with their own families the life in long-term care. They've decided that that may not be for them, at least not for the period of time that they had previously envisioned. They've decided they want to stay in their own homes and in their own communities as long as they possibly can. So they're looking to renovate their homes. Check out Real Life Renos for that. On Facebook, go to Reno Studios. The video project is called Real Life Renos, but you'll find everything there. This is such an interesting ride. Anyway, telehealth services are booming too, and that is a good thing for older adults. They don't have to rely on their adult children to take them to appointments. It's very stressful, this business of preparing for an appointment. They're getting up, they're getting dressed, they're stressed in their minds, thinking about what's ahead. They have to travel to the appointment, sometimes sitting in a waiting room for an hour or 2 hours or more, and then they're driving back home again. Telehealth services are the bomb, literally the bomb. In many cases, iPads are just being sent to their homes if they don't already own one. If they do own one, they just download the app, and at the appropriate time, they sit in their favorite chair and they turn it on and they connect and they have this conversation with their physician or their specialist. In some cases, they also go to OTN centers. So that would be in Ontario. That is our network, the Ontario Telehealth Network, and they go to the hospital in their local community or to their doctor's office and they log in from there to their specialist. So much easier. But these are the things that have been, if you will, silver linings in the past year. The embracing of telehealth networks, embracing family time, embracing the idea of gardening, making our own bread, cooking from scratch, learning to knit or repair our own clothing with sewing machines, like holy smokes, the way our grandmother used to do it, right? I am hoping very much that as we move forward, we will keep those silver linings top of mind and decide that these are the pieces that we want to keep in our lives. I hope you will join me in doing that, figuring out what the silver linings in your life has been in the past year and making a commitment to keeping that. I also hope that you will make a commitment to join us here next Wednesday at 12 noon for another edition of the Oldish TV. Until then, please stay well, look after yourself, look after one another. Do remember that it takes a village to age a senior. Bye.